Let me tell you something I know for sure: true beauty, real magnetism. It doesn't come from age, money, or appearance. It comes from how you show up for yourself and others every single day. You see, being irresistible isn't about seduction. It's about substance. Today, we're going to talk about 6 life-changing habits that elevate a woman from simply admired to unforgettable. Are you ready to step into your power? You know, one of the most powerful shifts a woman can make in her life happens quietly. It doesn't come with applause. It doesn't trend online. But when it happens, people around her feel it. Even if they can't quite name it, it's the moment she decides that her emotions will no longer control her, as she will control them. That's not coldness. That's not detachment. That's wisdom. That's emotional mastery. See, when we're younger, we're taught that feeling everything deeply means we're alive. And that's true to a point, but life will hand you situations that try to take you out of yourself. Moments that push every button, rattle every nerve. People who misunderstand you, dismiss you, betray you, or trigger wounds you thought you had already healed. And in those moments, the immature reaction is to fire back, to spiral, to prove something. But the irresistible woman, she pauses, she breathes, she chooses. That's the key. Choicey, because emotional maturity doesn't mean you don't feel anger. It means your anger doesn't get to drive the car. You may feel hurt, yes, but you don't weaponize that pain. You hold it, you learn from it, and then you respond in a way that honors who you are, not in a way that lowers you to match someone else's chaos. Now, let me tell you something. It takes strength to not match energy. It takes a grounded woman to sit in a room filled with noise and still choose peace. That kind of strength doesn't develop overnight. It's built one moment at a time. When you decide, I don't need to react right now. I can walk away. I can speak when I'm clear. I can rise above this. That's not weakness. That's power in its highest form. You don't have to attend every argument you're invited to. You don't have to explain your worth to someone committed to misunderstanding it. You don't have to make yourself small just because someone else is loud. There is a silent power in the woman who knows how to regulate her emotions, who knows that peace is not something handed to her, it's something she protects. And listen, I'm not talking about suppressing what you feel. No, this isn't about denying your emotions. This is about becoming so in tune with yourself that you can sit with those emotions, feel them fully, and still act from a place of self-respect. That's where the magic is. That's where people stop and say, there's something about her. I can't quite put my finger on it, but I feel it. What they're feeling is your emotional sovereignty, your steadiness, your refusal to be thrown off course by every wave. I've sat across from women who have been through storms, divorces, betrayals, loss, disappointments. And what made them truly unforgettable wasn't how loudly they cried or how fiercely they raged. It was how they emerged from those experiences more grounded, more aware, more intentional. They didn't allow the storm to turn them bitter. They let it refine them. You become irresistible not when you control the world around you, but when you control how you show up in it. And here's the truth: people feel safe around a woman who is emotionally stable. They trust her energy. They want to be near her, not because she's perfect, but because she is consistent. She doesn't let the room change her. She brings calm to the room. So the next time you're in a moment where the old version of you would have reacted, paused for approval, clapped back in anger, broken down because of a few careless words, I want you to stop and ask yourself, what would the woman I'm becoming do right now? And then do that. Because every time you choose grace over drama, clarity over confusion, presence over panic, you become more of her, the woman you're meant to be, the woman who doesn't just walk into a room, she anchors it. There's something almost magnetic about a woman who carries herself with deep, unwavering self-respect. You can feel it when she walks into a room, not because she's flashy, not because she's loud, but because she's grounded. She doesn't need to announce her worth. It speaks for itself in how she stands, how she speaks, and how she moves through the world. This kind of woman doesn't chase. She doesn't plead or prove. Not because she's hard or guarded, but because she's whole. She knows what she brings to the table, and she won't shrink to be chosen. She has lived enough, lost enough, learned enough to understand that settling for crumbs is a disservice to her soul. And the truth is, once you've spent time with your own heart and learned how to truly love it, you stop allowing people to play games with it. Now, let me say this, self-respect doesn't mean walking around with a chip on your shoulder. It doesn't mean building walls so high that nobody can reach you. What it does mean is that you're intentional about who has access to your energy. You know when to say yes, and you're unafraid to say no. You don't ghost your needs to keep someone else comfortable. You show up for yourself first, not because you're selfish, but because you've realized you can't pour from an empty cup. You see, people will treat you the way you treat you. If you constantly put yourself last, if you tolerate disrespect just to keep the peace, if you abandon your own truth to avoid conflict, what you're silently teaching the world is that your value is negotiable. But when you embody self-respect, you send out a different message, one that says, this is how I deserve to be treated. And if you can't meet me there, I'll still be just fine. And it's not just about romantic relationships. It's every relationship, family, friendships, colleagues. When you honor your boundaries, you start attracting people who can honor them too. And those who can't, they fall away, yes, but let them. Because every time you make space by releasing someone who couldn't meet your standard, you're inviting in someone who can. A lot of women were taught that being good meant being agreeable, silent, easy to manage. But I want to say this loud and clear. Being a woman of self, respect doesn't make you difficult. It makes you clear. And clarity is not aggression. It's not ego. It's love. Love for your time, your energy, your dreams. Love for the woman you've fought to become. I've seen it over and over again. When a woman truly steps into this version of herself, everything around her begins to shift. She no longer stays in rooms that insult her spirit. She doesn't explain herself to people committed to misunderstanding her, and she stops shrinking just to fit into places she's outgrown. Instead, she grows boldly, unapologetically, and with a grace that commands attention without begging for it. You want to know what makes her irresistible. It's that she no longer waits to be chosen. She chooses. She chooses who gets her time. She chooses what she'll tolerate. She chooses how she responds. And most importantly, she chooses herself. Not once, not just on the good days, every single day. And yes, it takes courage, because when you start respecting yourself, you may lose people who only benefited from your lack of boundaries. You may feel lonely for a while. But I promise you that kind of loneliness is a sacred space. It's the space where you rebuild, where you realign, where you rise. So when you stand in front of the mirror tomorrow morning, I want you to look yourself in the eye and say, I'm not asking for permission to be respected. I am worthy of respect, and I will no longer settle for anything less than what honors me. That is the moment the world starts rising to meet you. One of the most beautiful traits I've seen in truly mature, magnetic women is their ability to stay curious, not judgmental curious. And I know in a world that moves so fast, where everybody seems to have an opinion ready before you even finish your sentence, curiosity feels like a lost art. But let me tell you something. Curiosity is one of the most irresistible habits a woman can embody. It makes people feel seen, not scanned, heard, not handled, valued, not sized up. Now, we all know what judgment feels like. The raised eyebrow, the quick assumption, the mental checklist. Why does she dress like that? Why is she still with him? Why hasn't she figured that out by now? It's subtle, sometimes silent, but always sharp. And what it always does is shut people down. Judgment builds walls. Curiosity builds bridges. See, a curious woman doesn't need to put others in boxes. She's not in a rush to label or diagnose. She wants to understand, not interrogate, and you can feel the difference. You can feel when someone is asking a question because they genuinely care about your answer, not because they're looking for a way to confirm their opinion. And here's the thing. You don't need to agree with someone to be curious about them. You just need to care enough to listen without trying to fix, correct, or prove a point. That's emotional maturity. That's spiritual grace. That's the kind of energy that makes people feel safe in your presence. You can walk into a room and tell who the secure woman is. She's not competing. She's not comparing. She's not trying to one up or tear down. She's listening. She's asking thoughtful questions. She's holding space without making it about herself. That energy is rare. That energy is magnetic. That energy, lingers. And do you know what else curiosity does? It keeps you soft. It keeps your heart open. Because when you stop assuming you already know everything, when you open yourself up to understanding someone else's experience, you stretch, you expand, you grow, and you avoid one of the great traps of getting older, becoming rigid. There's a temptation, especially as we get more experienced, more confident, to think, I've been there, I've seen that, I already know. But that mindset shuts down the very thing that keeps us vibrant, our ability to learn. A curious woman stays youthful not because of how she looks, but because of how she thinks. She still wonders. She still asks. She still believes there's more to uncover in people, in the world, and in herself. And I want to speak to something else that's important. Sometimes we're judgmental because we're still carrying our own shame. We see someone struggling in a way we used to, and instead of offering compassion, we offer critique. Because deep down, we haven't fully forgiven ourselves for that chapter. But when you trade judgment for curiosity, you heal that part too. You remind yourself that we are all becoming, that none of us have arrived, and that no one's path is meant to look exactly like yours. So the next time someone says something that rubs you the wrong way, instead of snapping to a conclusion, ask yourself, what's behind that? What might they be carrying? What have they seen that I haven't? That simple pause, that shift from reaction to reflection is what separates a woman who demands attention from a woman who naturally draws it. People remember how you make them feel. And when you choose curiosity over judgment, you give them the gift of feeling accepted without condition. You show them what it means to be in the presence of someone who leads with love, not ego. And that leaves a mark deeper than charm, deeper than beauty, deeper than wit. Because when a woman chooses to see rather than scrutinize, when she leads not with answers but with questions, she becomes the kind of woman people run toward. Not because they need something, but because she reminds them of who they are. One of the most powerful things a woman can ever do is own her story fully, completely, without shame. Not just the pretty parts, not just the highlights, not just the version that sounds good in a bio or a dinner party conversation. I'm talking about the whole story, the bruises, the breakthroughs, the breakdowns, the moments you whispered, how did I get here? And the moments you decided, I'm not staying here. That story, that truth, that's where your real beauty lives. I've sat across from women who have spent years trying to outrun their past, tucking it away, editing it down, making it more palatable for other people. And you know what always shows up instead? A mask, a performance, a version of themselves that looks polished but feels hollow. Because if you're still hiding the very chapters that shaped you, you can't fully stand in the strength they gave you. Let me tell you something. Every scar you carry is proof that you've healed. And healing is not weakness. It's the loudest kind of power. It's one thing to go through something. It's another thing entirely to grow through it, to take what tried to break you and build from it instead. When a woman has done that, you can feel it in her energy. She doesn't flinch when people talk about pain. She doesn't shrink when the conversation gets real. She's not afraid to say, yes, that happened, and I'm still here. That kind of presence is magnetic. It's irresistible because we live in a world that's so obsessed with appearances, with perfection, with getting it right all the time. So when someone shows up in truth, when they say, I've made mistakes, I've lived through storms, and I've come out better, not bitter. It cuts through all the noise. It gives other people permission to exhale. It gives them hope. And I want you to know, you do not have to relive your pain to own it. You don't have to carry it around like a banner or make it your whole identity, but you do have to stop hiding it if you want to be fully free. You have to look at your own reflection and say, yes, I went through that. Yes, I lost that. Yes, I believe that lie. And yes, I still deserve love, joy, peace, and purpose. When a woman owns her story, something sacred happens. Shame loses its grip. Fear quiets down. And she stops letting her past make her decisions. She no longer needs to explain herself or justify her worth. She becomes her own validation because there's nothing anyone can hold over you once you've looked at your past and said, I'm not hiding anymore. See, we all have chapters we didn't see coming, seasons we thought would break us. And yet here you are, breathing, learning, evolving. And I want to remind you, that's not by accident. You didn't just survive. You've been becoming wiser, softer, stronger, more compassionate, and more real. The kind of real that resonates. People connect with your courage, not your image. They are drawn to your openness, not your perfection. You don't become irresistible by pretending you've never been broken. You become irresistible by showing that being broken didn't take you out, that it refined you, deepened you, made you more honest, more awake, more you. And that's what the world is starving for: authenticity, not performance, not polish, not pretending, but presence. That grounded, unapologetic presence that only comes from a woman who has walked through fire and come out lit from within. So don't wait for someone else to validate your journey. Don't silence your voice just because someone else hasn't found the courage to speak. There's your story matters. Your voice matters. And every time you own it, you remind someone else that they can own theirs too. Because a woman who owns her story doesn't just inspire people, she frees them. There's a moment in every woman's life when she realizes that joy is not just something that happens to her, it's something she has to choose. Not once, not twice, but every single day. And the older you get, the more you understand that this world will hand you 100 reasons to feel overwhelmed, bitter, exhausted, or numb. But the mature, irresistible woman, she refuses to let life harden her. She makes joy a non-negotiable. And no, I'm not talking about forced positivity or pretending everything is fine when it's not. I'm talking about a deep, grounded, self-generated kind of joy. The kind you don't have to post about to feel. The kind that comes from dancing in your kitchen while dinner's on the stove. Laughing until you cry with a friend who's seen you at your worst, taking yourself on a walk with no destination except peace, saying no without guilt, saying yes without explanation, that kind of joy. The irresistible woman doesn't wait for special occasions to feel alive. She creates them. She doesn't wait for someone to invite her to the party. She brings the light with her. She's not waiting for the perfect relationship, the perfect job, the perfect number in her bank account to be happy. Because she understands something most people miss. Joy is not a reward. It's a responsibility. And listen, this doesn't mean she's always smiling. It doesn't mean life doesn't knock her down sometimes. But even when she's going through something, even in her grief or uncertainty, she knows how to reach for the small things that keep her spirit lifted. She knows that joy isn't the opposite of struggle. It's the companion to it. It's the warmth you hold on to in the middle of the storm. You can tell when a woman is living from that place. She's lit up from the inside. She doesn't need approval to enjoy herself. She doesn't apologize for doing what brings her pleasure, peace, or excitement. Whether that's traveling solo, curling up with a good book, building a new dream, or simply choosing rest, she honors what lights her up, even if no one else understands it. There is something wildly attractive about a woman who doesn't make her happiness someone else's job. She's not performing for attention. She's not shrinking to make others comfortable. She's not waiting to be picked so she can finally start living. No, she is alive now. She's creating joy from the inside out, and that energy is contagious. People want to be around her, not because she's trying to impress them, but because her joy makes them feel more hopeful about their own lives. And I want to say this too. Sometimes the habit of choosing joy means walking away from the things, the people, the environments that drain you. And that can be hard. That can be lonely. But the woman who knows her joy is sacred will protect it like her life depends on it. Because in many ways it does. It is so easy to get caught up in survival, to go through the motions, to take care of everybody else while putting your own spirit on the back burner. But let me tell you something. You are not here just to endure life. You're here to experience it, to delight in it, to dance with it. Not in spite of your pain, but in defiance of it, because choosing joy is resistance. Choosing joy is healing. Choosing joy is freedom. So don't wait for permission. Don't wait for everything to be perfect. You don't owe anyone an explanation for what fills your cup. You just owe it to yourself to keep it full. Because the woman who makes joy her habit doesn't just change her own life. She becomes the kind of woman who lights up everyone else's. And that kind of woman doesn't just enter a room, she elevates it. One of the clearest signs that a woman has truly stepped into her maturity, into her power, into her becoming is this: she builds. She doesn't tear down. She doesn't compete in shadows. She doesn't weaponize her insecurities against other women. Instead, she uplifts, she encourages. She plants seeds that grow beyond her own reach. And she does it not for applause, not for recognition, but because it's who she is. When a woman is rooted in herself, truly grounded, she sees other women not as threats, but as sisters, as mirrors, as companions on the journey. She understands that just because someone else is shining, it doesn't mean her light has to dim. In fact, she knows that when women shine together, we all get to see more clearly. We all rise higher. And I know some of us were raised in environments that taught us to compete for space, to believe there's only room for one woman at the table. That success is limited. That love is scarce. That attention, respect, or admiration must be earned by outshining someone else. But that kind of thinking is rooted in fear, scarcity, wounds, and the irresistible woman has outgrown that. She knows better. She knows that there is room for all of us. And more than that, she makes room. She shares the stage. She shares the knowledge. She shares the spotlight because she's not afraid of being forgotten. She's not